right, welcome inside another edition of IndyStar Preps Weekly, coming to you live this week from Roncalli, home of the Royals. I'm Brian Haenchen, joined by Kyle Neddenriep and current picks leader Akeem Glaspie. Akeem, how are you?
I'm good. I appreciate the respect up top. Makes me feel good.
That's good. Kyle, how are you?
I'm hanging in there, 2 games behind, and Akeem made me wear the same shirt as I wore last week because I'm trailing. I got to change shirts next week if I win.
Kyle's not overly superstitious, so he's going to wear that shirt
Yes.
until he gets a winning week.
Yes, I think that's how he's just going to have to wear this for the rest of the year now.
I probably shouldn't have pointed that out. Maybe people wouldn't have noticed.
Would have been fun to see if anybody would have noticed. Well, we're back here. What week is it, Kyle? Week 7? 8?
Week 8, yes.
Week 8, wow. Selection
And-
show?
Yes, I was going to say, selections this week, and we'll have a show, right?
We will. We'll be live on FaceBat. We'll be live on Twitter Spaces. We'll be coming to you live at 8 o'clock after Kyle finishes writing his 10 takeaways, after the 4-hour marathon of a show finishes up. Hopefully people call in early. And what is it? Telethons, those used to be a thing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if enough people call in and donate money to something, like maybe us, maybe just us, just donate money to us, we can make the show end quicker. Akeem?
Yeah, no comment.
I thought it was a great idea. Whatever. He's not a team player. He gets the picks lead, and suddenly Kyle and I are just like chopped liver. Anyway, for that, we're going to start with Kyle in the game that you had last week. Carmel hosted Ben Davis, correct? Game that was a little back and forth early, but Carmel pulled away.
Yeah, really good game. I thought it was 21-14. Carmel ended up winning. Kind of the story of the game was Reese Bellin, and just phenomenal game he had, and it was close, very close early, kind of a defensive struggle, but still an exciting game, I thought, for even both teams not really scoring points, but teams kind of moving up the field and would get stopped. But before halftime there, Reese Bellin caught a little out pattern from Jack Kazmierzak, and looked like he was just going to run out of bounds, kind of goes off to the left side, and he said after the game, like, I didn't see anybody there, so I cut it back to the right. Well, it turns out into a 73-yard touchdown. He split like 3 Ben Davis defenders. I mean, it's on our IndyStar.com plays of the week and stuff like that, so you can see it there. But phenomenal play, and he was kind of the story there late. Ben Davis had a chance. They tied it 14-14 in the fourth quarter. Had the ball. A few mistakes here and there, and Jason Simmons a little disappointed after the game with how they handled some of those missed opportunities. Carmel gets the ball back. They get a pass interference call that was huge, kept the drive alive. The ball was going to Bellin again. And then on third down from the 3, Kazmierzak throws a kind of a fade pattern to Bellin, who was single covered, and he caught it easily, and that was kind of the difference in the game. So he ends up with 6 catches for 139. A lot of it was on that 73-yard pass. But, in a game where it wasn't like a ton of offense, 6 for 139 was a lot, and they targeted him so often. And I mean, he's, to me, he's got Indiana State offer, he's got Butler, Valpo, some smaller schools at this point, and if Indiana State can get him, awesome. But I can't imagine some a little bit bigger schools won't come in. He's got the speed, he's got the he's not super tall, but he's got good enough size for a guy who can play in the slot, or I think split out. So I can't imagine he won't. And he's just got that ability as a receiver. Sometimes you just see it where a guy just knows how to make plays. And this is a really good – I wrote it in my Monday column, but just a really good year for receivers. Marcus Reese on the other side for that – in the Ben Davis side, he had not one of his biggest games, but I think he was about 8 for 80. And, again, in a game like that, that's pretty good. But he's a great receiver. I mean, you find a lot of really good receivers around the area this year. And Ahmad Duff, who I covered the week before, Noah Coy from Center Grove is on his way to being a great receiver. Already is, I think. So just a really good year for that position. And Reese Bellin, especially Desmond Duffy's out for the year now. He's not going to return, the Ohio commit. And just imagine with those two how dynamic they would be if he was fully healthy. But Bellin's kind of taking that, taking the torch there, and he's run with it. And credit Kazmierzak too, because he knows where to go with the ball.
Yeah.
So there's no question that's his first read on almost. And then when he's single covered, I mean, that's what you got to do. I mean, so that's just a smart play. And even John Hebert said it after the game. He's like, he knows what his reads are. A lot of times he thinks his best read is Reese, and that's a good decision.
That's a special connection between those two. They've come up and playing together for a long time, and you can tell, too, just watching them, having covered them early in the season, that those two, it's sort of like a safety blanket. They know where to look for each other and get each other open, find opportunities like that, and it's fun to watch and fun to see them develop over this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust there, I think, is probably what I'd say. And, they're a team now, they're 5-2, and with that combination between those two, and their defense is very athletic. Not many teams have held Ben Davis. I don't think anybody's held them to 14, at least with their full offense like they have right now. So that's pretty impressive. Will Helt, who's going to Purdue, at 6'6", you just don't see guys that athletic who can chase people down in the open field and turn and make turn of direction and things that he can do. So Winston Berglund and all that side of the ball. Christian Peterson is another player in the secondary and on special teams. He's a guy to watch. He's playing some offense now. He's a Division I type player. So they've got a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. They're going to be a dangerous team, I think. And I'm not sure they're not the favorite when you look at the bracket. And we'll talk about the bracket Sunday when we do our show, but they may be the team to beat on that side of the bracket. No offense to HSC, because I think they're right there too. But when you look at that side, and we'll take a closer look, like I said, Sunday, but I'm not sure Carmel's not the team to beat. Absolutely. On that side anyway.
Absolutely. Akeem, your game from last Friday, I asked you about it before the show, and it completely slipped my mind.
Yeah, I was here for Roncalli versus Louisville Male.
That's right, and the offensive line once again shined for Roncalli, a story that you had up today on them. Yeah,
it was actually a close game heading into the fourth quarter. It was tied at 7-7, and then Roncalli kind of takes over from there. Luke Hansen, the running back, ends up with 4 touchdowns. Roncalli gets an interception, and then on the next play, Hansen goes 58 yards for a touchdown. He ended with 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's his third 300-plus rushing performance this season. And, after the game, I was able to talk to their coach, and that's the culture that they want. They want to be in shape. They want to be physical, and they're going to run it down your throat. And Hansen, he carries that load very well. He's averaging, almost 28, 30 carries a game, and he also played like 10 to 15 snaps on defense as well. So just that the warrior-like mentality. He's a wrestler. He comes from a family of wrestlers. His father wrestled. His older brothers wrestled. And talking to his dad, that's kind of where that toughness comes from. When you grow up, roughhousing with your brothers, you can't be soft. You're going to grow some toughness, and he kind of shows that on the football field with the way he runs and kind of just how physical he is. And then obviously you have to give credit to that offensive line. 3 of the players there are going to play Division I. At the Division I level, led by Trevor Lauk at left tackle. They're going to Iowa. He's obviously they're big human beings. Like I said, I know I coined the phrase solar eclipse, but those guys are really large and they move bodies. And when you have that, it's kind of the symbiotic relationship between the running back and the offensive line. And Luke makes people miss too. He's not just hammering away. He has some shiftiness and some speed because he had a 73-yard touchdown run in that game as well that kind of opened it up a little bit. So he shows his speed and kind of a vision, and then obviously the offensive line gets the job done as well. Then the defense only allowed 7 points. Louisville scored on a 75-yard touchdown. And the kid the kid that scored the touchdown, Antonio Harris, has a Purdue offer, so he's no slouch either. The kid has wheels, but definitely a tough performance from Roncalli. It wasn't as lopsided as the score kind of showed, and they could be in for another test this week that we'll get to later.
Roncalli moves to 7-0 on the year. Beyond this week, what's the next big in-state test for Roncalli? I'll pose that question to both of you guys.
New Pal.
Yeah,
I think that's what everyone would want to see is kind of when they can meet up and what that would look like. Because like I said, the game last week was definitely a test, but the ultimate test certainly seems to be New Pal in that division.
So I say that tongue in cheek a little bit because we still got a ways to go.
Yes, no disrespect to anyone on either schedule, but if I had to choose 2 teams to kind of be the top of the class there, it's those 2.
And they're in the same sectional, right? So we can.
They would play in the regional, so
the regional,
it would be,
okay.
The week after the sectional championship. But yeah, that's. I think people, if you look at the 4A, and 4A is very good again, so you don't overlook anybody because there are teams out there that can get you on a given night. But man, those 2 teams. I think if you put those 2. And we can always do this and guess but if you put them in 6A, I kind of wonder how they would do because there's not a lot of teams I don't think that could beat either one of them.
Yeah, especially if we're talking linemen, New Pal has 3 high caliber Division I linemen too. So just strength for strength, it's you couldn't really pick, who had the obvious kind of advantage on either side. So that'll be a matchup if it happens for the ages.
Awesome. Looking back at last week, I know there were some ridiculous catches. There was the one that Tri-West had where the dude just sort of, bear pawed it down, didn't even tuck it, as the coach pointed out on Twitter, just sort of pulled it in and waltzed into the end zone. That was pretty sick.
Man, yeah. Did we check his hands for Stickum? That was amazing.
I called Cole Morgan, who made that catch Sunday, and talked to him about that play, and he sent me a picture yesterday, which I posted on Twitter too, an actual picture of how close the defender was. A kid from North Montgomery was right with him, basically, on his left side. Because watching on video, I was like, Cole, why did you just put one hand up? And he's like, well, the defender on his side, as he was running to the end zone, was basically right on his arm. He wasn't holding him, but he was running right on him. So he just stuck his hand out, and the ball from 37 yards out was right here, and he just pulled it in. Or he didn't pull it in. He just held his hand up here like this as he runs through the end zone. So it was one – I don't think I've seen – it was sort of like Odell, except Odell, he just didn't pull it. He just kept running with the ball in his hand like the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, just stuck there. So I don't know if I've seen a catch like – I'm not saying it's the greatest ever. It's got to be – it's one of the best I've seen. But he said, yeah, he ran his route kind of too far to the outside, like outside the numbers, and he was getting sort of close on – being able to be in the end zone, so he just kind of stuck his hand up and hoped for the best. It was unreal. I don't, especially from that distance. It wasn't like it was a little lob from 2 yards. It was 37-yard pass. So, but yeah, that one, there was a lot of like wild. The Pendleton Heights rugby play. I ended up going out there and writing about that because all those kids are on the rugby team. So that was a cool play too, but yeah, a lot of just weird, wild stuff happened Friday night, and you never know. You kind of hope for that every week, and there's always some great plays, but those were two of the wild and weirdest ones of the week.
In terms of results, would anything jump out to you boys? Wins, losses, ties, etc.?
I would say Lawrence North's win over Warren was pretty surprising. I know we talked about Warren kind of needing to figure out the quarterback situation, but Lawrence North was a young team as well. I talked to their coach early in the season, and they said they're still trying to figure some things out. I talked to them after their loss to LC. They're just trying to figure some things out on offense, and they have a lot of young guys relying on a lot of sophomores. So I guess that win shows Lawrence North's growth. That those sophomores are, they're 7 games in, so maybe those sophomores are playing like juniors now, and that's kind of showing with the performance over a talented Warren Central team.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that, Samarian Ford for Lawrence North had an unbelievable – he returned an interception for a touchdown, had a fumble recovery, had 10 tackles, 3 sacks. You talk about a night to have, and he did that for Lawrence North. So, a big win. They've beat them 3 years in a row now in the regular season. So that kind of shows how far that program has come, because if you would have said that a decade ago, that would have been, just foolish to even think that. So credit Pat Mallory and that staff and that program for, kind of sustaining over time. They're maybe not a team you would think of as maybe a state title contender, but even this year where, they're losing quite a bit from last year, they're still able to sustain. That's a sign of a good program and some stability for that program. So good win. Yeah, I think Warren probably dealing with some, quarterback issues that they're going to have to get sorted out. But, again, we talked about them. They're in a very winnable sectional. So if they can get things right by the time they would see probably Center Grove in the regional, then, they played Center Grove pretty tough in week 1. So you never know. But yeah, a big one we talked about last week, Cecina beat Triton Central, a game that came down to Wilson covered that game for us, but came right down to the wire, and I think that sets up those teams could play each other again in the sectional, and could be first round. We'll find out Sunday, but that game, Cecina won by 1 point. Triton Central tried to run it in they got an offsides call and then tried to run it in from the 1.5-yard line, couldn't do it. So that, right down to the wire. So that sets up to be a really good potential matchup in the sectional again.
Absolutely. Before we get to the picks and how everybody did last week, was there anything else that jumped out to you guys, or was that a pretty calm week otherwise?
Yeah, it was sort of there was some good – I was happy the game I covered, the Carmel game, and, I think Akeem's game, looking at Louisville Male is always one of the better teams, bigger school out of Louisville, so I think that, again, speaks to what Roncalli's doing. So yeah, I mean, it was sort of there weren't any huge like changes in the rankings this week necessarily. It wasn't that type of a week, but I think pretty much status quo. And we're kind of to the point of the year too, where I think people are ready to see what the sectional draw will bring. And then next week, we'll have some huge games with Brownsburg HSE and Center Grove Cathedral. So that's a lot to look forward to next week.
Fun.
Yeah,
that'll be real fun. Speaking of the sectional draw, again, Sunday night, 8 o'clock, we'll be live. IndyStar, Facebook, social media channels. Kyle's, I think we'll go live on his Spaces page if you've been listening on Twitter. To Kyle's post-game shows, we'll be simulcasting on there for the audio-only feeds. But it should be fun. We did this last year. It was a lot of fun to do that, and y'all be welcome to get involved with us because we'll be live. So you can ask questions and all that good stuff, and we'll prepare you and get you ready.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but yeah, Facebook and on our IndyStar. So yeah, we'll have a lot of fun, I think, and a lot of surprises in store that we have planned, right?
Oh, yeah, plenty of surprises. All the surprises. I think Akeem's going to come out of a cake. I'm going to be wearing a bow tie.
There you go.
Kyle's going to do something. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a weather report from Clark. I don't know. Akeem, I don't know.
I'm scared now.
Wonderful. Let's get to the picks. And first off, a recap of last week. The boys tied at 7-3 each, so Akeem maintains his 2-game lead. There's not really much else to say. I feel like we fired those bullets at the beginning of the show, and now we're just we're ready to get into the picks. It's another big week here for Kyle to try and come back.
I'm working. I try to pick some good games that are possibly get Akeem thinking too much.
Let's see what happens.
We need some speedway games in here because that's Akeem's school. So if you get them in the right matchup, that could be an easy game for you because he's going to pick the plugs no matter what.
Yeah.
He has to. He's contractually obligated.
Go spark plugs.
First game, we got Martinsville 6-1 at Mooresville 5-2. Kyle, this is your game on Friday night. What do you make of this matchup?
Should be a great game. And Mooresville coming off back-to-back losses, so this will be a key. They gave up 48 points last week to Whiteland. Whiteland was also coming off a loss, so they were able to kind of get it right. We've talked about Mooresville as relying so much on Nick Peterson. How does that bode for this week and against a Martinsville team that's just been playing really good football, and talking about a lot of good teams in that class. I mean, they're definitely in 4A. They're definitely a team that's going to be hard to beat. I'm going to take Mooresville, I think, to bounce back in this one and beat Martinsville. Again, might be a little bit of an upset pick, but I'm going to take Coach Gilly and the Pioneers to get right and not go through a 3-game losing streak.
Akeem?
Yeah, I'm actually going Martinsville. I mean, like Kyle was saying, Mooresville, they're putting a lot on Patterson's shoulder. And again, if the defense is starting to falter a little bit, I mean, that puts even more pressure on Nick Patterson to kind of carry the load offensively. And Martinsville's defense has actually been improving, and they have a great three-headed monster on offense led by Atkins at quarterback. So I'm going Martinsville.
That should be a great atmosphere too. I think that'll be a fun game. And Mike Gillen, though, he always seems to find a way to get him going. So should be good though. I think Brian Duggar's done a great job with that Martinsville program to get them where they are.
First game right off the bat, we have a difference with Kyle going with Mooresville, Akeem going with Martinsville. Game 2, Lawrence Central 4-3 at Ben Davis, also 4-3. Does Ben Davis bounce back this week, Akeem?
Yeah, I know Kyle has been able to do a lot of kind of reporting on LC's defense. He had a story on Joshua Mickens last week. Their safety, Trent Baker-Booker, just committed to Virginia. So, I mean, imagine that, a defense with an LSU commit and a Virginia commit and an Alabama, baseball commit on the other side. That team just has a lot of talent, and I like what Coach Patterson's been doing with them. So I'm going LC. I don't know if that would be an upset, but I just kind of like the progression of LC's defense and what they've been able to do. So I'm going LC.
Akeem's on the Bears. Kyle, who are you with?
Yeah, I'm going to take Ben Davis in this one. And I was debating it. Now that Akeem took LC, I'm going to go the other direction. But I think Ben Davis, this is basically for the MIC championship, too. Ben Davis has another MIC game next week. I think it's North Central. So they'd be favored pretty heavily to win that one. But then LC's done with the MIC this week. So if they can win this game, they would win the MIC, which is a pretty good feather in your cap, obviously, if you can do that. And I think this will be a really good game. I'm curious to see how Akeem mentioned that LC defense, and you don't even mention Tylen Cunningham, and he's probably the leading tackler on that. So you've got all kinds of talent on that side of the ball, and they had a shutout last week. So trending in the right direction again after Center Grove kind of lit them up the week beforehand. So, that's going to be a good game. I think Ben Davis, I just like the way, if you missed our highlights, Elijah Price made one of the best runs I've seen all season against Carmel. He somehow cut back, spun to his right, cut back through the middle of the Carmel. Very good defense, broke 2 tackles, and it was like I want to say like a 22-yard gain, but you won't see any better 22-yard gains than that was. That kid's electric. He's only a sophomore, and sometimes you don't even talk about him because we've got Kowski and Marcus Reese and all the talent they have. But man, he's phenomenal. And Destin Beauchamp also too at running back, who had a 73-yard reception as well. So just a lot of weapons. I kind of like Ben Davis to come back after that Carmel game and get things right. I think they're going to be motivated because they felt like they left some stuff on the field last week.
All right, another game difference between those two. Next up, we have Westfield 4-3 at Fishers. It's 5-2. Kyle?
This might be a little bit of upset pick too. I'm going to take Westfield to beat Fishers. I think I'm not sure why I'm going to pick them, but I'm going to pick them. Fishers, I really like the way Kobe Martin and that team's been playing. They were down by a point to Franklin Central last week, and basically won and scored the last 2 touchdowns and win going away against a pretty tough opponent there. But I'm going to take Westfield. I just think I don't know why. I'm just going to take them.
Akeem?
Yeah, I mean, Kendall Garnett's been giving Westfield a big boost at running back. He had over 100 yards last week, but I'm actually going Fishers. Again, Kobe Martin's a great running back, 3 100-yard games. So I'm going to go Fishers, so I guess we're going to just keep differing.
3 games in, and we could have a new leader by the time. We might just have to stop the count here, honestly.
Let's go all 10 different. How about that?
We'll see.
We'll circle back to Roncalli at the end here since that's where we're hosting.
Okay.
Guerin Catholic 4-3 at East Central 6-1. Akeem?
Yeah, East Central, their offense is averaging over 38 points per game. I expect it to be a shootout on offense or on both sides, so I'm going East Central.
Yeah, I had a chance to see this East Central team last year, and Josh Roller he was a sophomore last year. He's averaging about, I think, over 9 yards a carry this season so far. He's one of the best running backs. I don't know if people around East Central's kind of over there by Cincinnati, so you probably don't hear as much about them. But they beat. I covered them last year against Mooresville, and they kind of handed it to them. I really came away liking the way that team plays. Well coached, good team. So. Unfortunately, we're not going to differ on every game. I'm going to take East Central to win. Guerin's Ryan Zimmerman, by the way, is out for the season, unfortunately, the quarterback who got off to a great start. His collarbone injury is going to keep him out the rest of the year. So, unfortunate loss for Guerin, but their backup kid, the sophomore kid, has been playing pretty well.
Center Grove at Lawrence North. Center Grove 6-1 on the year. Lawrence North 3-4, Kyle.
Yeah, we talked about Lawrence North and trending the right way, and they go into this game. I don't think they're going to be scared at all of Center Grove. They've played them close before, but I just think Center Grove, they've got this game with Cathedral the next week. I'm sure they would want to take some momentum into that game. But I think this is a game, people may sleep on this game a little bit and not think it's going to be very good. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I'll take Center Grove by a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what people would call a trap game. Mm-hmm. If Center Grove can get caught looking forward or getting caught looking ahead. But I think they take care of business. I'm going Center Grove.
Carmel 5-2 at Warren Central 3-4. Akeem.
Yeah, again, we kind of talked about Warren and the struggles that they have on offense and kind of with the quarterback position. Carmel doesn't seem to have those problems on offense with the connection that their quarterback has with their receivers. So I'm going Carmel.
Yeah, and for years this has been one of the hottest rivalries. I mean, covered so many of these games between these programs. A lot of, Kevin Wright had coached at Warren and then coached at Carmel, and there was a lot of connection between the two programs over the years. 2 of the most successful programs in state history. So there's a lot of, when you think to this game, you think about the uniforms on the field and the talent that's played against each other over the years. So. But I just think Carmel right now is in a better spot, more veteran team in a lot of ways and at a lot of positions. And talking to John Hebert after the game, he really likes the way when they were 0-2, there was no panic or they knew they had a good team. They knew they played 2 really good opponents, Trinity and Center Grove to start the year. I kind of like the mentality of this Carmel team, and I think they're going to win Friday night.
Park Tudor 5-2 versus Covenant Christian 4-3, Kyle.
Yeah, this should be a really good. It's a 2 1A teams that are, I think, probably you would say roughly top 10 or right in that range in 1A. It's a series that hasn't gone on for a whole. Covenant Christian hasn't had a program that long, but they won the first 3 games between these teams. Park Tudor won a close game last year. Park Tudor lost some seniors last year that were very crucial to their team, but DJ Gordon's still there at quarterback. They still have same coach Spencer Somerville, who's kind of built this program up over time. This should be a really good game. I think, going to be a lot of points on the board, something like 38-31. But I'll take Park Tudor.
Akeem?
I'm actually going to go Covenant Christian. Again, like Kyle was saying, this is a sneaky good quarterback matchup between DJ Gordon and Tony Flatt. Both guys can really have complete control of their offense and can, move the offense well and put some points on the board, like Kyle was saying. But I'm going Covenant Christian.
Eastern from Greentown, 5-2 at Sheridan, 6-1.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot about either team heading in, but I saw some clips of the running back, Peyton Cross. That's a big boy. I wouldn't want to tackle him. Just from watching those clips of him alone, I'm going Sheridan.
I like it. Kyle?
I put him in our under-the-radar players to watch a couple weeks ago, and he is a big dude. He runs the ball hard. It's typical Bud Wright, where they stick the ball in the running back's hands, and they try to move you down the field. So Bud Wright, by the way, this gives me a chance to say 442 career victories now for the all-time coaching leader. So I don't know how much longer he's going to go. I mean, hopefully a long time, but this is a very good team, and they're ranked number 10 now in 1A. So be curious to see how far they can go. This will be a tough game for them, but I'm going to agree with Akeem. I'm going to take Sheridan.
Last game before we get to Roncalli, Pike and North Central, the battle of 2 winless teams, but I know Pike has been in some really close games here this season.
Yeah, and I put this on because I think it'll be a competitive game. I'm going to take Pike to win, and they've kind of been, up and down some. They've been close with some good teams, and then some good teams they haven't matched up as well with. I think this will be a chance for them to get on in the winning column, and it's pretty rare. Kevin O'Shea at North Central, they haven't been able to have a very good last couple seasons. He's a very good coach, though, and obviously he's won a lot of games in over the course of his career. So I know they're hoping to get one too, but I'm going to take Pike to get their first win.
Akeem?
Yeah, like Kyle was saying, a matchup between 2 winless teams. Mentally, I've played on a winless team. It's tough mentally, so it's good to see that one of these teams will end the season or end this week with a win. Hope for a close game, but I'm going Pike as well.
Last game, we have put away my phone and I forgot what the game was. We have Roncalli hosting Cincinnati Elder. Good out-of-state test here for the Royals. Akeem, who you picking?
Yeah, Elder, they have some athletes on their team. They have a 6'6" quarterback, Ben Schuster. He's like a switch-hitting outfielder on the baseball team as well. Then they got a 6'8" pass catcher in Carson Brown.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's from 6'8" to 6'6" to 6'8". That's a connection that, could cause some matchup problems for Roncalli. Like I said, Roncalli definitely had a test last week against Louisville. Like I said, it was a closer game than the score will make it look, but I'm going Roncalli.
Kyle?
Yeah, you might put those guys on the Roncalli offensive line as big as they are. That's huge. I'm going to agree with Akeem. I think Roncalli keeps the momentum going. And, again, check out Akeem's story on Luke Hansen, that offensive line. Kind of broke it all down as to why they're having success and what they're doing. And they're running him a lot. And, I did talk to Luke also earlier this year about that. He said, hey, that's what Coach Quintana said was going to happen, so that's what we're doing. And they haven't had much of a let-up in their schedule, so he's pretty consistently getting the ball 35, 40 times. So that'll probably be the case again Friday. He knows it. The Elder knows it. It's a matter of can you stop it, and right now no one's really been able to do so. So, he's going to end up – I don't know what he's going to end up with yards-wise. It'll be fun to see ultimately where he lands, but with 2 regular season games to go, he's got a chance to put up some ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, I did the math. So he's averaging 270 yards per game. So to get the Roncalli single season record, he would need 5 more games at an average of 270 yards.
Wow.
And so they have 2 more regular season games, 3 more games in. They'd have to make it to the regional championship. So that kind of, and we've already talked about it. Yeah, so good luck putting up 270 yards on maybe, New Pal, but he's on pace to break it in 5 games. So maybe if he goes for 400, that kind of cuts that timeline down. But the Roncalli's single season record is within his sights.
Is it Baron Hebler who's got that? Do you remember?
No. Was it the former AD, Mike?
In
1993.
Okay.
It's in the story. Read the story and figure out.
Quite the team.
Yes, and figure out whose record Haenschen's breaking. But yes, I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to attempt it. But it's in the story.
Mike Baron Hebler a couple of years ago had similar. I know he was pretty close when Roncalli won state in 2020, and I know Luke learned a lot from Baron. Watching him, a very patient runner Baron was, and I see that with Luke this year. Just seems to be more confident, waiting for holes, waiting for plays to develop, and of course you have a little time when you've got that kind of offensive line. But it kind of reminds me of the way Baron would run, and it's working for him.
So, boys, different on 4 games next week, so that means when we come to you live on Sunday, again at 8 o'clock for the selection show, we could have a new picks leader, which has to be pretty daunting for Akeem. You can't see it on camera, but he is shaking.
Or he'll have a huge lead.
That's true. Now Kyle's shaking. They're both nervous. I couldn't be more excited. Clark looks pretty jazzed behind the camera, too. Before we get out of here, boys, what do you have coming up here the rest of the week?
Yeah, I'm on soccer duty the rest of this week. I've got games today and Saturday, so Brian could break that down for you better than I can. But I'm looking forward to some great matches, and I know there's a lot of soccer talent that I'm getting a chance to see for the first time, so I'm excited.
Kyle?
Yeah, I've got the girls' game at Noblesville, so it should be an awesome atmosphere and game. So looking forward to that. And I've got a story coming on Indiana Deaf quarterback Jaden DeFalco. And just kind of about their program and him, and he's very good. And they're kind of in transition to be an 8-man program starting next year. So it's kind of it's fun. I went out to their game Saturday night with Grace Hollers, our photographer, and it was totally different experience. I've been to one other, or maybe 2 other deaf games, but it's been a while. So just very cool. They had their homecoming, and they allowed me to go in the locker room with them and stuff. So very neat. Hopefully can write a good story off that.
That's awesome. And yeah, like Akeem mentioned, we'll have lots of soccer this week. I have had games Tuesday night as you're watching this. Wednesday night we'll have games, Akeem and I. Kyle's helping out Thursday, Friday's off, and then Saturday, sectional championship day. A lot of good games. I think we'll probably have at least 4 covered. 2 boys, 2 girls, I think is the plan. So it's a fun weekend. It's that time of year. Next week's volleyball sectionals. The sectional and random draw is stupid. I just want to reiterate that. I've been banging that draw a lot on Twitter, but it's silly. As we talk now, I just covered the top 2 teams in the state played in the first round on a Tuesday night last night, which is just ridiculous. And there's matchups like that. This year's draw for soccer seems like it's just especially bad. But if you ask me, it's time to change. But in talking to coaches, it doesn't seem like there's much momentum. And I'm sure for the majority of schools, why would you? If you have a bad team, you can get a good draw and go deep and extend your season. So why wouldn't you want to do that? It just stinks for the good teams.
It does, yeah, and it is, you kind of, I've been here long enough where you just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I forgot people coming in don't realize, because I was the same way as you once upon a time, and I know in some sports, in football included, the Coach Association put up what I thought was a pretty cool idea for potential seating and doing some different things. And it didn't, it just didn't go very far. So, I guess it's been beaten out of me to complain about it, or not complain, but it is. I mean,
I like to complain.
Yeah, well, it does not make sense to have the 1 or 2 team in the state out in the first round of it.
Right.
You want your best teams playing later in the tournament. Is my always thought about that. And now the other side is say, well, you got to beat so and so to get to that point, but don't you want your better games later?
Right, yeah. Like the Carmel-Zionsville matchup was the one I was referring to on the boys' side. It was inevitable. Like, it really did feel like that because they've been the 2 best teams throughout. And certainly North Central could throw a wrench in that. They're a really good team, too. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them beat Carmel by the time you're watching it, have beaten Carmel in advance. But at the same time, like you said, wouldn't you want that later in the rounds? Yeah. And then, too, I think there's a discussion to be had about sectionals and how do we try to balance it out. And, because, just the competitive balance is so uneven in some of these sectionals. Wouldn't it kind of make sense to group everybody together, figure out a way that works with travel? Because as it is, somebody pointed out on Twitter, Terre Haute's traveling all the way up to Center Grove for games as it is. So especially at least for the bigger schools, isn't there a way to massage a little bit, make it work travel-wise? I think 4 regionals make sense and seed it in from there. Take a little bit more work, but I think it'd be a lot better for the product and just, I think it rewards teams for being good. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm fine with everybody getting in. Just make sure we're taking care of the teams that are good, that have played hard schedules, and have worked to build their programs, giving them a good, fair shot. I think there's a way to do it and have the sectional draw still, because I know that's been something like, hey, we don't want to lose our draw. I think you can still do a draw and have some sort of a, have some sort of a reward
to be seeded higher. Maybe you don't seed everyone; you just seed some of the top teams.
Yeah, I think that might be the move. You just seed like the top half, and then the rest you just random draw from there based on regions or something like that.
Right.
And happy middle ground. I think it makes sense.
There you go. We figured it out right here. 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. Pay us enough money, and we'll make this idea happen. All right. Well, we thank you all so much for watching. Akeem is ready to go with a big week of picks. We thank you all so much for watching. I don't know how to end the show anymore, but we'll be back with you Sunday night, 8 o'clock. Selection, show, draw. Kyle will have stories up. We'll have the live show, Spaces, Facebook, all the things. We thank you all so much for watching. We'll talk to you in a couple days.